Hello everybody and welcome back to Farming Simulator 2017, and today we're going to do a little bit of something different. I'm going to try to make a tutorial on how to use the workers better in a field. Now I've never tried to make a tutorial before, so expect some things to just be a little bit odd sounding or like the wrong terminology, but what I'm going to show you works for me a lot. No, that good old meme, works every time, 60% of the time. No, that kind of thing. But I see a lot of people having trouble with workers. You know, they won't work in a field. They get messed up, get turned around, hit things. So we're going to try to remedy that the best that we can, but that requires input from the player before the worker even starts working. So first, let's just go over what kind of implements there are, because that's going to play into what we do to prepare before we get to work with our worker. So on plows, there's 3 different types of plows really in the game. I had to add in this little one just that way it was there, and it's a pretty popular mod. People use it a lot. It's a small ripper plow. It's the one on the lender here, and what they are mounted and semi-trailed, if that makes a little bit of sense, until you talk about the T9 with the Salford, which is a fully trailed plow, and I rarely ever use it. I have a lot of problems with it and a worker because it bends in the middle and the worker kind of just freaks out with it, especially on an articulated tractor. So I think we're going to skip that one for now until I have a better basis on like tips and tricks on how to use it. The same thing that we're going to talk about today applies to it, but you have to take in a greater headland just because of the way it works, if that makes sense. Hopefully it does. Okay, so the first plow up is this little short stubby ripper plow. This is normally found on very, very small tractors. It's my go-to for a small map with very, very tight places to be. You don't have to swing as much, so your headland width doesn't have to be as wide. And that's going to matter here in just a minute when we get to talk about that, because your headland width has to be the tractor length plus the implement length, and around a times and a half of that. So if the tractor is, let's say, tractor and implement's 10 meters long, you're going to need a 15-meter headland for the thing to turn around and not hit a wall. So shorter implements work better on smaller maps. That way you're not doing basically all the work for the worker and then they're doing 2 passes. Next up is the Amazon, just standard. It's the vanilla plow. Most people have this plow. They use it. They really like it. It's a turn plow, so you can do left or right with it. And the reason that this is normally the go-to on like 95% of the maps is it's mounted to the tractor. It doesn't turn at all, so it's pretty easy to get around. You don't have to worry about, you know, jackknifing or anything like that, and it works really well on a worker too, because when they turn around they just flip the plow, so they don't have to have this big wide berth and then back up and then do all this crazy stuff. It works the way a plow should work, but it needs a little bit more room. So to take into account that full width, you know, you're going to have a pretty decent headland for your worker to turn around. Okay, the last plow we have is the Salford one. This is the default. If you spawn in things on a map, this is normally the plow that you get, unless they, you know, change some things around. It's a semi-trailed. It's not fully linked, so you get like a little bit of a turn. It's not much of a turn whenever you turn. So try to take that into account for a worker. If it's like really, really tight at one end, then you may get stuck up on something you weren't thinking about, like a rock or something like that, because instead of the plow lifting up off the ground, it's on the ground all the time. So try to keep that into account. And we just have 2 types of cultivators. You either have mounted, which we have here on the New Holland with the Coon, or the bigger ones that we have mounted here that are normally, quotes on that, they are normally trailed, is the one we have mounted on the stayer. Okay, so here we are at the entrance to Field 14 on Terra Italica. And the reason I chose this field is it's very oddly shaped. It has some different turns in it. It's got one straight side on it. It comes to a point on one end, and I think it's about the most complicated field that you can actually work until you get to those kidney bean shaped ones, which are a little bit odd, but they're not horrible to work on. They just take a little bit longer to get set up. Okay, so as you can see here, we've got this long straight area. Hopefully everybody can see my mouse there. I think you can. And it goes not into a 90-degree turn, but probably about like a 75-degree or so, into a straight 90 around this wall. There's a wall that runs right up along the field, into a soft curve, into another straight line down to a point. Okay, so we need to figure out how we're going to set the worker up to go to work, because if we just send them down the field, they're going to come back. They might go down one or two more times, but as soon as the field angle comes to a really sharp point, the worker is going to think that they're done. They're not seeing the rest of the field. They only see what's in front of them. Okay, so they're seeing the field boundary, but they're not seeing the rest of the field, even though it's behind them. Okay, so they're taking in that account. They're not going to turn around. They're not going to go back, because all that they're seeing is, oh, the job right in front of me is done, and I don't see anything beside me. Okay, work complete. You get the little flag comes up in the top right hand corner, and there you have it. So we have to cut in headlands. Headlands are just really quick, do a couple laps around, and that basically sets up field boundaries for the worker that they can always see. And I know that terminology is going to sound really weird, because I figure that's not exactly how it works in the game engine itself, but it's the way that it appears to work. So if we do one headland, then we've only got, and we can take a look at how wide our plow is. We have this offered one, 2 meters. Okay, our tractor is about 2 meters wide, so you know, not too bad. But our tractor is about 3.5, 4 meters long, and with the implement, I'm gonna say probably about 8 meters total in length. So, give or take. I don't know meters. To me, that looks like it's 6, 12, 18, 25, 26 feet long, if you're American. So that's your standard character, 6 foot tall. You lay him down on the side, blah 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 blah. That's how I look at it. It'd be, you know, 25 or 26 feet long. So we need to have a headland that is around 12 meters. So it'd be 6 plows wide, which seems like an awful lot, but it isn't. But where this is a semi-trailing one, it kind of wants to do a turn. Instead of the way a normal plow would work, is it would pick up, go forward, back up, turn around, and be right there. Whenever an implement is trailed, it wants to lift the implement up out of the ground, pull forward, go around the opposite direction, and pull back into whatever it's working on. Okay? Now, the 1.5 rule isn't, you know, it doesn't have to be that all the time. So let's just try 4 headland and see where we get. So I'm going to cut these out really, really quick. Okay, so that is our 4 headlands cut. And as you can see, let me hop out here and we'll take a slightly vertical look. We've cut a lot of that field by ourselves that the worker isn't going to do. That's one of the problems with trailed implements on smaller fields. Okay, some of them are pretty easy to use horsepower wise, and you know, some of them are pretty easy to drive too. But anytime that they're trailed or too large for the field, whenever you set up for your worker, you're going to do most of the work. But there's still plenty that we can do here. So I'm going to show you 2 different types, and hopefully it's all going to make some sense. So after all that setup, which direction do you think that we should go about plowing this field? Should we go the long way, which is the cheaper way, or should we go the short way, which is going to require more turns and more money. Now, there's two ways to think about that. Let's say you're in the field next to us and you're cutting grass. You know, you're not doing anything too awful important. You just want to be able to do something while the worker does a little bit, and you can come back and fix anything. Okay, that's what I was doing in my playthrough the other day. Was we were doing grass work, and in our big field, our worker was getting along on 4 hectares pretty good. It was a very odd-shaped field. It's actually field 53, 51 on this map, which is this big guy right here. And they come down to a point and the worker kept kicking off, so it was taking a lot longer time. But because I was right there next to it, it didn't bother me. I'd go down there, reset it. I was already, you know, changing implements or whatever at the time. It did not bother me. Now, if I was just happened to be in field 11 and my worker is working field 22 and I don't want to fast travel or whatever to get down there and they're keep having trouble, then yeah, I'm probably going to be a little bit upset that, you know, my little guy is not doing everything he's supposed to do. So I would set it up on the short run. Okay, long run cheaper. With less turns, the worker keeps working faster. You're not wasting time turning around. Turning around is easier on the worker if you have them set up right, because you're getting rid of a lot of the turns. Okay, you're taking this long run, and yeah, it's straight on this end, but then it goes all wobbly on the right. So as soon as it comes up to a point or a wobbly bit, it's freaking out. It doesn't know what to do. But we run down here to the other end. We run down to this end of the field, and let's say we go up and down the field this direction. Everything is a straight line. But why is that? It's got curves. Because it's running the field like a printer. You know, when a printer prints a circle, it doesn't print a circle, it prints a straight line. A bunch of little dots, left and right, and then bam, you get your circle, right? So it's all straight lines. It's not having to move around in a circle. So if we go back up in the air here, run this direction, okay, then we turn around, we come back down this direction, worker sees, okay, we can turn back around and go this way. When they're running this long area, yeah, it's all well and good, you're running the long bit, till you come to here, the worker thinks it's done. Which is, you know, decent. If I were working in this big grass field, I'd walk over here, turn back around, and go back the other way. That's the cheaper run. But whenever he comes to this area, I might as well do it myself at that point because it doesn't understand. But on this, straight line, straight line, straight line. See what I mean? It's just the length of the straight line changes. You're not going around a curve. So let's see if our trailed, well, semi-trailed, I'm going to call it trailed. I really don't like this plow. It's my least favorite. I use it sometimes, but I really don't like it. So if we hit H, what happens? I'm not doing anything. That's a worker. Now it's going to miss a little bit. Okay, your workers are like kids. You gotta clean up after them sometimes, no matter what you do. So as long as this guy turns to the left, see how he's taking up all this room to turn around because it's a trailed implement? That's going to become a problem when we hit that wall. He's not going to hit everything. See how he stopped for the wall? That's the problem with this kind of implement. But it's not much to clean up. This is something we could do in just, you know, a couple of swipes. It's not a big deal. But this is costing us a little bit of cash because he's spending a lot of time turning. So even though this this works better on oddly shaped fields, it is going to cost us more money. So, you know, take that as you will. So, what will happen if we use that little sapphire chisel plow, or whatever you want to call it, ripper plow? Well, let's find out. Okay, so we've got the little ripper plow here on our Hurleyman, and we're heading up the field. So what's going to happen? Now, the turn is different because this isn't a trailed implement, it is a mounted implement. So we won't have the big turn. It's going to go forward, see the edge, stop, and then back up and turn around. See how much less room that takes? This is why it's important to size your equipment to your fields as well. So, extra learning lesson. So hopefully the same thing happens on the other end, and he'll continue, and he can just work this field to his heart's content. So let's let him run for a little bit, and we'll see if any problems come up. So, nothing bad happened, has it? So that's taking off pretty well, and whenever we look at it on here map, you can see that we're going into a curve, and as long as you set it up right, everything's fine. So this applies to basically every implement in the game. If it's got a turn, make a wider headland. If it doesn't have to turn, the headland could be a little bit smaller. So if we take a look, whenever he gets back up here, we'll let him do some work. I mean, we are paying him, so might as well do one more pass, right? Now, how wide is that? It's 1.5 lengths, the total length of our tractor and implement, right? That's why it has enough room. Again, the 1.5 is kind of a guesstimate, but it seems to be what normally works all the time. And you can basically say that for about any implement until you get to up to like the really, really stupid wide stuff. But then you're already basically in a big open area anyway. Normally, I mean, there are some bigger fields in some tighter areas, but this works for me. There is the AI extension mod. I really don't have any luck with it. I could just be dumb and not using it correctly, but I personally don't have any kind of luck. Now, it is the faster way to do things because it can do laps. So it'd be going around the field nonstop, so you're not wasting money turning. But I thought, you know, I would share this kind of tips and tricks kind of thing. That way people could have a little bit better luck maybe with their fields, where worker costs are not so worrisome for some. Like for me, I like to keep my worker costs down, so I go out of my way to make sure that they can work correctly going the long way, which you could do on this map pretty simply, actually. So if we went down here, let's say we wanted our worker to go up and down this field, right? We would come to the widest part that we can find, which would be right here. And we'd cut a headland in. Okay? Now, as you can see, because we've cut the headlands out of this, it's kind of hard for the worker to do. But you would cut this headland a couple of times so it could turn around and not get confused. Ignore my keyboard steering. I don't feel like using the wheel right now. It's loud and clunky. So, if we still had the headland, like if we didn't cut this headland out, what you want to do on an odd-shaped field is make everything a box. Okay, if you want to get the most productivity out of it. So then we could just send our worker now, and watch him prove me wrong, but he should go up and down the field without much worry. So let's see what happens. He's doing quite well. They are doing quite well. Now, you'd have to clean up that little area, but what does it matter? You know, you're working the farm anyway. Having to clean up one or two little strips is not a big deal. So, if this were still here, you would have to kind of quadrant this off a little bit. So you'd want to make it as square as possible for the worker. So you'd still end up doing this little corner here and the little corner down here. But the worker would do the rest of it, and it would save you money because the worker's constantly working. They're not turning. Okay, turning's losing money. I know I've said that a few times, but if a worker's turning, you're losing money. But if the worker's turning and they're not hitting anything, then they're still figuring out the problem, and most of the time they keep working. So it's slower, more money, and you get a better job that you really don't have to go back and fix. You know, little sections here and there, not a big deal. Or you spend a little bit less money, but you have to go back and fix more. So hopefully that makes some sense. And the same applies for every type of implement, okay? So that is workers plowing tutorial thing. I think I'll make like a couple little things, like whenever you use follow me, some people have some trouble because the worker wants to wig out whenever they go around a corner, and then they go careening across the sky and everything else. So we'll go over that a little bit. Hopefully this helps out some people. I tried to pick the oddest field that I could actually see. So, you know, hopefully this does help somebody that is struggling with workers a little bit. And if there's anything I got wrong, and you definitely know for sure that I got it wrong, put it down in the comments and let me know, and I will go back and try to fix this the best I can. But, so, yeah, I guess I'll see you guys in the next part of this.